Hi, I'm Rabbi Hammer, and this is Simply Mental Health. At the end of the video, feel free and please do subscribe to this channel. In addition, I welcome hearing from you, your comments and your questions, and I will respond and answer those questions as best as I can accordingly. Today I want to confront or deal with the question of, are pets, or more specifically a dog, are they accommodating and helpful to those who experience mental challenges or mental illness? Now, this question resonates with me on a very personal level because Gila herself longed for a dog. She very much wanted to have a dog of her own, something that we were unable to accommodate, but something that we certainly understood what she wanted and why. And the question is having a pet, or specifically a dog, helpful for someone who is dealing with various mental illnesses? Some of the answers that I'm going to provide for you might seem to be rather obvious, but nonetheless, they certainly are worthy of review. Someone who suffers from depression, for example, are isolated or may feel isolated. They feel feelings of loneliness, and they're unable to exist within the social parameters as we would know them, or social norms of society. As such, a pet is a perfect solution to providing them with a social companion, companionship, and I would even go as far as to say friendship. And therefore, a dog is absolutely, or can serve that need for someone who suffers from depression. In addition, someone who suffers from depression, anxiety, they have a feeling very often of being defeatist. They do not know how to become, once again, task-oriented. And many times as a result of that, because they do not have or cannot exist within a regular schedule and cope with those daily activities, they might feel useless. A pet, or having a dog, is something or an animal that brings that person closer to functioning during those daily functions. So, for example, a pet requires you to take it out for a walk, which would mean and translate into a number of things. Number one, it's a means of bringing a person outside, getting some sun, enjoying the outdoors, and also exercising, going for a walk with that dog that needs to be outside. And secondly, it also is a means of providing this person who is suffering with a sense of responsibility. I am required to look after my pet. It needs to be fed. It needs to receive water. It needs to be bathed. It needs to be walked regularly. And therefore, it not only puts a person who might have difficulty fitting into a schedule or making a schedule for themselves on a daily basis, it puts that person into that schedule, and it provides them also with a sense of meaning. I am doing something today. I mean something to this animal. I am assisting in their lives. And that gives me as well purpose. Very, very important for someone who is suffering from depression to feel useful, that they can contribute to the atmosphere, to the environment that they are in. And by looking after an animal, by looking after a dog, for example, they are absolutely doing so. In fact, it's interesting as well. People who suffer, or children, or people who suffer from ADD, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, or attention deficit or hyperactive disorder, certainly it has been proven that pets can be beneficial. Number one, for a person who suffers from ADD, it gives them structure. The person who suffers from ADHD, dealing with hyperactivity as well, obviously it is a means of releasing those energies, releasing those tensions that have to be an outlet or be laid out in some way. And taking care of a pet, getting outside, running around with them, walking with them, is a healthy means of releasing those energies. Thirdly, there is a social skill set that very often people who suffer from anxiety, from depression, from various mental illnesses do not necessarily have or forget how to use. And therefore, dealing with a pet certainly is very beneficial as such. A pet, an animal, is non-judgmental. It is, or certainly demonstrates what we would call unconditional love. And that is something that demonstrates to the person who is suffering a sensitivity, a love, a companionship, a friendship that they might not have elsewhere. They can find vis-a-vis this pet that they have and that they are looking after. Now, let us understand, obviously, an animal is no substitute for human companionship, or it certainly cannot substitute or teach us human skills. But in a very large way, it can teach or accentuate or task a person to arrive at better skills by, or bring them closer to arrive towards those skills through the pet in dealing with people as well, which leads me to another very interesting point. We have at the end of our road, for example, there are many people along our street that we live on who own dogs, and they very often congregate together at the end of the road with their animals, and they talk and they schmooze and they discuss and they're friendly and they chat, but they really are congregating together because what is the commonality between them is that all of them have dogs. And so they bring their dogs to that one area. Someone who has a dog is prone to socialize with others who have dogs. They'll go to a dog park and they'll see other people there as well. And therefore it is entry into conversation, into social stratospheres that lends a person who has a dog the opportunity to do so with other people who also have dogs as well. And since someone who is experiencing anxiety from socializing, or who just doesn't long that much, or doesn't have the desire to socialize, the dog can be a way of bringing that person back into that social congregation, so to speak, or into those socializing atmospheres. And finally, it's important for us to understand, what if a person who suffers from mental illness just can't own their own pet? They don't have the financial means to do so, or their families might not necessarily support the initiative. There's other solutions. For example, what you can do is you can tell the person to perhaps ask others if they themselves can walk their dogs for them. Gila herself, we have friends in the neighborhood who owned a dog, and they realized that Gila was suffering, and they actually offered Gila to take their dog for a walk so that it would activate Gila and get her involved and give her, again, meaning and purpose and a reason to get outside and to interact with others. And it was very kind of them. So if you don't have your own dog, you can be a part of a project of looking after other people's dogs. Or there is certainly such a thing called animal therapy, looking after animals, being in a zoo, caring for other animals as well, can certainly be therapeutic for someone who is suffering, and a means of demonstrating that sensitivity and finding that purpose in their own lives, which is so vital for their own existence. And finally, I want to point out that there are even animals or dogs which are called service dogs. These service dogs can actually provide calm for someone who suffers from anxiety. They actually can detect when a person is starting to have or become anxious, and just the feeling they come, and just the feeling of having them close, the touch, the ability to hug them, to look after them, to groom them, that itself can be a very calming factor and alleviate that anxiety for a person who suffers. And therefore, in conclusion, yes, having a pet, having a companion, having a dog certainly can be a very beneficial experience for someone who experiences various mental illnesses and challenges. And if any way that it can be implemented and encouraged, it should absolutely be done so. I thank you so much for listening today. I remind you again to please subscribe to our channel and communicate. Send me a question. I certainly will try to answer accordingly. I thank you for listening. I wish you all good health, a good state of mind, and may we only know and be the bearers of good news. Thank you.